Welcome to my Self-Care Shit, the podcast, where we talk about what true self-care looks and feels like. I'm your host, Kathy Love, two-time TEDx speaker, author, and self-care coach. Each week, we'll have honest conversations on how to create the peace and stability we crave in our lives. Today, my guest is Scott McGregor, the publisher and editor of Outlier Magazine and the founder and CEO of both the Outlier Project and Something New. He's a four-time author of the Standing O series. His companies have won a record 8 consecutive American Business Awards winner for innovation, the Best of Staffing winner, and he is a Vikings fan, if that matters to anyone out there. He also is allergic to cheese. Some of these finer details I have learned over the last 9 years working with Scott and in all of these companies, and I am very excited to talk to him today. I just changed into my podcast clothes.
Wow. Wow. I'm nervous.
I am thinking that this is going to be a 10 to 25 part series with Scott McGregor because we have a lot to talk about. I have been working with Scott for the last 9 years, and the story of how that came to be is podcast worthy. Scott has watched me in my healing journey over the last 9 years. And so there's plenty of content and stories to tell about that. And at the same time, I've been watching him build the Outlier Project community solely by the relationships that he has created with people who were strangers before their first connection and seemingly best friends right after. So, for this podcast, at least, I wanted to just talk about how building relationships and having the people and the experiences that you get with those relationships, how that is true self-care. So,
Let's do it.
all right. So I have heard, I have a little bit of a inside scoop here because I know some of these backstories, but I wanted you to go back in time to when you first started building relationships because it was long before the Outlier Project.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I've always been a super curious person. So I've tended to ask people a ton of questions because as a kid, I was just trying to figure the world out. So I would ask lots and lots of questions, and that wound up building a lot of really interesting relationships. And then professionally, I just got really intentional about building relationships because I knew that was probably going to be one of the secrets of any success that I had. And that has proven to be true. I would say that, anything that I've been able to accomplish has been because of the relationships that I've built. So I've been very, very intentional about building them. And I've also recognized that I want to do really good things in the world and I want to leave a legacy. And that legacy gets easier to build based on the people that I know. So I'm very intentional about building high impact, high influence friendships because those are the people that can move the needle and make all those good things come true.
So, do you think you recognize that in middle school, high school? Do you know when you started to really key into that?
I mean, I was always fascinated by people that did unique things. And, sometimes that was sports, and other times it was like academics, and, other times it was business people. I just was very, very interested in getting to know them. So I always did it probably wasn't really until I started working. And then I remember doing, like, people were like, "What are you doing?" I would write, there was a column in the newspaper in the New Haven Register. It was called People on the Move. And it was these little clips of people that had just gotten, the CEO role at this company or that company, or, they were people that had been promoted into some sort of prominence. So I would cut it out of the newspaper. This is going to tell you how old I am. I would make photocopies of it, and then I would write everybody a handwritten letter and congratulate them on, this promotion or this new company that they work for, or whatever the case may be. And I got really, really positive responses. Like, people would call me and say, like, "Who are you?" Like, no one's ever done anything like that. And that was kind of like gas on the fire for me. I'm like, "Oh, I love this. I love that nobody does this." And I always felt like, because I never felt like I was the smartest person. I knew I wasn't the smartest person. I knew I had some sort of a learning disability. I didn't know what it was. I later, as an adult, got diagnosed with ADD. But I was like, I'm not going to outsmart people, but I can kind of outwit them a little bit by doing these kind of quirky, unusual things that other people didn't do. Does that make sense?
That's exactly the story I was hoping you would tell. Because it goes back. It's been who you've been the whole time. And although the mode of delivery has changed and you're not mailing out newspaper clippings, it's the intention that's still there. And it it obviously creates this network of people who can help you do great things, and it also makes them feel good. It's like it's a win-win when you're reaching out with something like that to make somebody feel like I think that is your superpower, is that you make people feel like you see them for who they are and what they're interested in, and you always seem to find some message or get actual gift or whatever it is to prove that you are listening and watching.
Try. I mean, I work really hard at it. Well, I don't know that that's true. Some of it is just like, it seems normal to me. Um, I'm intentional though. I'm very intentional about it. But I think now, because I truly have no ulterior motive other than to build a friendship, and because I have so much history of that turning out to be a really positive thing. And it turns out to be a positive thing in a myriad of different ways, um, that I could never predict. But I have enough history to know that if I do it, it's there's going to be a boomerang effect and it's going to positively impact me. Um, so it's like, why wouldn't I keep doing all of those things and investing the time and the energy to do it?
Yeah, super. Well, I've been the recipient of some of those super thoughtful, personalized gifts or surprises, I guess. The my favorite, well, I have a couple favorites, but I was actually my last episode was going back in my journal, and years ago I was writing about how I wanted to paint. Actually, I think I said it in that episode that that was one of the things that brought me joy, but I had not been painting for years. And just in passing on a call, when I mentioned that I really wanted to start painting, a week later there was a an easel and a paint set at my door from you, and I ended up painting all kinds of things, and um, it was just a really that was a really, really great catch that you got there.
think if you listen, people are dropping breadcrumbs left and right, and it's just a matter of if you're paying attention and if you care about bringing joy into other people's lives. And to me, that's such a special thing that we get to do is to bring joy to other people. Like there's nothing better than that. And I
But have
that
you
I
sent
did
an
I
easel? Have you sent an easel and paint set to anyone else?
no no.
Right. That's the thing is they're so personalized. Even the I love to tell the story about when I was sick and I had the flu and you called me and told me to check my mail and I was pissed because I thought you were asking me to check my email when I told you I was sick. And you said, no, 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 your real mailbox. So I went out there and there was a bag with 2 cans of chicken noodle soup for me and a gift card for my kids to walk down the street to the pizza place for a pizza for dinner because there is nothing that a sick mother wants to do less than cook dinner for their kids. And so again, that was like, have you ever done that that was just such a personalized, thoughtful gift. And so, but it's not about the gifts. Like that made me feel a certain way. Like, you know, it 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 wasn't about the $2 can of soup. It was really about the thought and the knowing that you weren't actually telling me to check my email, that you were actually doing something that was very, thoughtful and caring. So what's the craziest, do you know what the craziest thing you've ever sent someone is?
Craziest. I send a lot of stuff out. I love to gift stuff and it doesn't have to be expensive. I sent so I have a friend, Frankie Russo, who's a phenomenal public speaker, and he's always talking about embracing your weird and staying in a childlike state to a degree. And there was more color and context to it than that. So I went and I bought silly putty, I bought a slinky, I bought a Mr. Potato Head, I bought all these toys, like kids' toys. And I sent him this package, and I can't use the exact language he used when he sent me a text when he got it. But he was pretty blown away. And yeah, so that was unconventional
Mhm.
for sure. Uh, and I've definitely done a lot of things like that. I'm not purposely trying to be unique. I am purposely trying to be personal.
Mhm.
Um, I want people to know this is specifically for them because I'm thinking about them. Uh,
Well, you're also not purposefully expecting a gift in return because I watch the trips to the post office and all of the boxes and the packages that go out. And I always say you look like a kid on Christmas morning, like you're so excited for them to get the gift. I love it.
if you could play Santa Claus every day, why wouldn't you? And so it seems like a very normal thing to do.
Yeah. So I know that the relationships that I've developed inside the Outlier Project because of the people who have been attracted to the community and who have stayed and really gotten involved have become some of my best friends. They are just so important in my life and um, just the I was just I guess I have so many stories of how they've impacted me, but just curious as to how you think those relationships have impacted you personally and not about building the community and not about giving back in our humanitarian trips and all of the things that we can do, but just personally.
I mean, they all make me want to be a better person. They make me want to do big things. They hold me accountable. They raise my standards. I especially love hanging out with people that have done and accomplished things that I will never accomplish in my lifetime, and I'm totally fine with that. But I just know that from just being in the proximity of those people that my life gets elevated, and then I'm able to do things that elevate other people's lives. Which is a kind of another way of giving gifts to other people is as my life gets elevated, I'm then able to do more for other people.
Yeah, the I think the ripple effect of the community itself, the whole community, and what we've all been able to do together has been, uh, well, we know it's gone across the globe because we've been to Nicaragua and we've seen it in other places, the work that's been done. And it's, I know that the ripple effect that I hear from people too is in their own families at home, in their relationships with their friends. So it's, we've said this a million times about you being the sum of the five people you spend the most time with. And for me, it's very similar to what you said. It's the elevating, the conversations are elevated and the goals get elevated. And I see people who are doing things that I want to do, which shows me it's possible. And sometimes they can show me the way to do it. And um, and and then when you see people doing these interesting things, it just sparks more ideas. Like your brainstorming session that you had with yourself today. Um, some of those ideas likely came from they're not copying, but they're just sparked by. So not to take ideas, but what does Melanie Borden say? To reimagine. You can reimagine just like the way you look at different industries, like um, what's the book about from the restaurant in the restaurant business?
Reasonable Hospitality by Will Guidara.
Right. So looking at that book and then applying it to how it would correlate to a community is it's just surrounding yourself with those books and those people and those ideas that just changes everything.
Yeah, it really does. I just think it's fun. I look at life as like we only have one shot at this. Um, and I want to have fun along the way. And part of fun for me is being creative and just coming up with wild ideas and then just implementing them and seeing them come to life, whether that's publishing a magazine or starting a community or building another business or starting relationships. It's just so gratifying to see something go from just a thought, which is just like this kind of intangible thing, this thought, to all of a sudden you're you're holding the magazine or you're in a relationship and a friendship with somebody that you never expected, or something like that happens. That there's magic to that, and that makes life so much fun.
Which is self-care, finding those things that bring you joy, finding the things that make your life fun. That is self-care. One of the things that people struggle with when they are in the healing from codependency is a lot of fear. Fear of trying new things, fear of failure, fear of success, fear of judgment, fear of it's really codependency is so based in fear. And I have watched you do this and build this community seemingly fearless.
Yeah, I definitely am not fearless. So I care about what other people think, but it never stops me from doing what I want to do. Almost never. But I do care. Like I'm not I think when people say I truly don't care, like I'm not even that much of a psychopath. It crosses my mind like, oh yeah, I'm gonna get judged for this, or people aren't gonna get it, or people might think I'm weird or whatever. But like I'm gonna do what I want to do, and I've been like that since I was a little kid. I mean, I did stuff or didn't do stuff that I had a tremendous amount of pressure on me to do, from my parents or from people that were older, that were authority figures, and it just didn't feel right to me, and I was just like, I'm not doing it. I've always been like that. So I'm not mortally wounded by that stuff, but I'm definitely affected. But it doesn't stop me from, I'm always going to do, this is my life. Um, and I'm going to do the things that I want to do.
Only one life is the phrase you
Yeah.
came up for that, yeah. And you have been judged and people have thought you were weird. So it's not like you do it and
Yeah.
then you find that that was just all in your head. I mean, people definitely have different ideas about it, but it's the letting go of that judgment or that whatever it is, and just knowing you know yourself so well. The first time I ever heard the word self-actualization was when that guy referenced you, and that is the healing that we look for, is just knowing ourselves so well that someone could say anything about us and we know it's not true. We know where we're coming from. We know what our intention is. We talk about that a lot too. When your intention is coming from a good place, you can't argue with that.
Yeah, I never really think about a lot of this stuff, but I don't question myself a lot. Um, like I kind of know because I know what's true, I know what's not true. Um, so in that way, things are easier, because I feel like I understand, myself pretty well.
Right, because people who don't are going to second guess themselves and not be able to make a decision one way or the other because they're afraid that it's not the right way, or, you know, a million other things that they're afraid of. And so that deep knowing, is what can make it easier to just make those decisions and just know that it's what you want, what you need. And I say this almost every day when I talk to new members, is that the Scott McGregor you talk to one day is the same Scott McGregor you'll talk to 3 months later, because you're a very consistent character. And part of that is just knowing who you are. You are the same person all the time. You're not putting on a show for this person. You're not talking differently to this person. You just are who you are. And that is true self-care.
Yeah, it's funny. I told, obviously, my wife Meg very well. I told Meg, when we first started dating, like probably the day I met her. Um, I'm like, the one thing I can tell you is like what you see is like you can flash forward 10 years, I'll be the same person. I might have different ideas and stuff like that, but I'm the same. Like I'm not trying to be something that I'm not. And she would probably agree that 15 years later, yeah, I'm the same.
Yeah. Except for better, because you've definitely learned along the way. I mean, we've, been through lots of
Sure.
things the last 9 years, and you've always been really great about going through an experience, figuring out what the lesson was, and moving on. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a huge one. I I am definitely blessed with amnesia. I forget about bad stuff very, like, it's almost disconcerting, like how quickly it doesn't bother me anymore.
Which works in
So
my
I
favor.
definitely heal very quickly,
Yeah.
which I don't know why it's like that. I used to think it could have something to do with sports. My coaches would always say, if you screwed up on one play, you better forget about it by the next play because like the ball could be coming your way or whatever. And if you're still thinking about what happened, and because of the profession that I chose, which was sales, it's similar to sports. Like you get rejected more than you get, approval. Um, and if you're licking your wounds like a week later or a month later or whatever, you're never going to be successful. And I'm like, I am absolutely going to be successful because I have to be, um, for economic reasons alone. Um, Forget the other reasons why it was important to me. Um, so I don't know, all of that. I was just like, if I lost a big deal that I thought was in the bag and, I was kind of already counting the commission check, I could get over that in typically minutes. And then I saw other people when I became a leader, people that really grappled with those things weeks, months later, and it was almost impossible for them to be successful consistently in a sales capacity.
Yeah. Being blessed with a short memory can be very helpful. All right,
Yes,
this is the end of episode one of, let's see how many. I hope you'll come back on as a guest. But
100%.
yeah, this is we definitely have a lot to talk about. So thank you for being here, and I will see you at work tomorrow.
Kathy, you know that I appreciate you. You know that, all of the wonderful things in my life wouldn't be possible without you. And that's the truth. Um, so I always know like that you're like a safety blanket to me where I know I can go crazy and dream this stuff up, that I don't have the skills or the capacity to execute on it. But I'm like, I know Kathy will figure it out. Um, so it's probably a blessing and a curse in your life, but it's been a huge blessing in mine. So thank you for that. Because it's enriched my life in more ways than I can count.
Yeah, me too. It's been a great 9 years. So we're what, 33% through.
Yeah, something like that.
All right, thank you. I appreciate you.
All right, we'll see you.
Great job making time for yourself today. Be sure to subscribe to my Self Care Shit, the podcast, wherever you listen in. Your 5-star review will help get this show to whoever needs to hear it. Go grab your free daily self-care checklist on my selfcareshit.com. Please take the last minute of this podcast for yourself to listen to the ocean waves and breathe.